the study that I just did was done with children at 2 Hartford public Montessori magnet schools. And I don't know how many of you know, Hartford's one of the poorest cities in the United States, but as magnet schools, they're attracting children from the outlying suburbs as well. So we have a huge range. And the control children were waitlisted and were attending non-Montessori schools. And it's a longitudinal design where we tested children in the fall. So the first semester that they were in school, some of them weren't tested till December, but we got them as early as we could. And then we tested them the subsequent 3 springs, so throughout the 3 to 6 class. And we had 4 entering cohorts, so the data collection was finished in 2016. And there were a number of strengths of this study compared to anything else out there. The Montessori was high quality. They were AMI accredited. There's a training center in Hartford. The control group was randomized lottery design. That's kind of the gold standard for this sort of research. It's hard to randomly assign children to schools completely, but their parents had all put them in this lottery, and then the lottery was random. The sample size was 141 children, which is a pretty decent size considering it's longitudinal and 4 test points. And it was a very diverse sample ethnically, and you'll see other ways in which it was diverse in a moment. The longitudinal design was great, and we used a lot of different measures. So at initial test, you can see the Montessori and the control group are both about the same age, just a little over 3. Pretty similar gender composition. The household income was around $70,000 average, but it ranged from 0 to 200,000 across the sample, an enormous range. And mother education averaged some college, but there were people that had had a 9th grade education up to postdoctoral. And our methods were one-on-one 45 minutes test sessions in school by one of 11 trained testers. Since this happened over many years, 6 years total, we had several people test. And I'll tell you more about these measures as we go through. We gave them all in a set order, and it was the same measures at each time point. And at baseline, they were all statistically equal. You'll see some little differences here and there. None of them were significant, and I think it has to do with the fact that we weren't testing them before school started, but after they'd been in for a little while. So for academic achievement, we gave them very standard tests that are often used in school testing. And this is, the reason we do this is because that's what, people who do this kind of work care about. And so you want to see how children are doing on these things. So for math, applied problems and calculation tests, a letter word test where they first read letters to you and then words that get more and more complex, similar with picture vocabulary. And these 3 academic achievement tests were highly intercorrelated. There was a common factor underlying them, and so we converted them to z-scores and summed them so that we're doing fewer tests overall. So here's the results for academic achievement. Montessori is, the blue dotted line is the actual, this is a growth curve model, so the solid is a fitted line, a statistical line. And then the control is the dotted or black line. And what you can see is in the beginning, again, that's a slight difference, maybe because they've been in school for a little while. It's not significantly different. There's a lot of overlap. But as time goes on, by the 3rd time point, they're significantly different, and also at the 4th time point. So the children who are in Montessori are doing much better in academic achievement. But one of the most exciting things, I think, about this study and what it's found, I think the reason it's getting so much attention, is when we divided it by income groups. So the children who were in the lower income half of the sample, which averaged about $33,000 of income, what you see there, these are the dotted lines, is the blue is Montessori. They're starting out low and a lot lower than the high income ones. Still low at time 2, but what you can see by time 3, the lower income children in Montessori are starting to move up. And by time 4, they're not even different anymore from the high income children who are at the control schools and at Montessori. Statistically, it's no longer different. Still some difference, but you can see a nice trajectory happening there. So pretty exciting to think that that happened over 3 years in this kind of school program. And pretty sad to see what's happening to children in typical schools. And actually some of those children are in other magnets and things like Reggio magnets. Although Reggio I think is a great method too. So is this at the expense of liking school though? One of the things people worry about when we bring in more academically oriented programs for young children is that they get, drill and kill and they lose any desire to be learning in school. So we also asked children, how much do you like several different activities? And there were a range of smiley faces down to very sad to say how they felt about it. And we asked questions about reading, questions about school, how much do you like watching TV or movies, and so on. And what we found was that Montessori children showed a stronger relative preference for scholastic over recreational activities in the last 3 time points. So, the beginning doesn't really count because they haven't been in school yet, but as they'd spent more time in school, you saw them liking it. So that's great. Here's how that looks. These are bean graphs. This is how much they like recreational activities. The blue is Montessori. It's about the same. The black line in the middle is the mean, and the 95% confidence interval is the shaded. And the dots are individual children. But that's how much they like academic tasks. And you can see Montessori children are higher, and you can see some of the conventional children are very, very unhappy about getting lessons and reading and things. Okay, then what about social skills? We gave them what's called the theory of mind scale, which is a significant predictor of social competence in children. And there's 4 different stories that we told them about different mental states. And so, for example, one of them is diverse beliefs, where children are shown a picture of some bushes and a picture of a garage, and they're shown Danny and Danny's cat, and they're told Danny's cat might be in the bushes or might be in the garage. Where do you think Danny, the cat, is? And so the child guesses where the cat is, and whatever they say, we say, well, Danny thinks it's in the other place. So that way they can't just answer egocentrically since they think it's something different. So then you say, where is Danny going to look for his cat? And a young child will say, they'll be egocentric and say, they'll look where I think it is. But as children get older, they realize that he's going to look where he thinks it is. Okay, so a series of things to look at their understanding of mental states. Hugely important thing to understand that we go through the world based on our own mental states, not on the child's. Okay. So how'd they do on that? Started out the same, but over time the Montessori children are doing significantly better. They have significantly better social understanding than the children at the other schools. Okay, then there's executive function, which are these mainly prefrontal processes that govern our goal-directed behavior. The prefrontal cortex, goes down to the limbic areas and the hypothalamus. So, this oxytocin receptor gene business is all tied in here. And we know that children's executive function when they're 3 to 5 years of age, from this huge Dunedin, New Zealand study, was a significant predictor, controlling for all kinds of things, of health, wealth, and criminality outcomes all the way out to age 32. Pretty phenomenal findings. And there's lots of studies showing that executive function is a very strong predictor of how well children do in school and how well they do in life. And it's basically the ability to inhibit yourself from doing things that you shouldn't be doing, the ability to switch rules when the situation changes, the ability to make plans, and so on. We gave children 2 tasks that tap into executive function, and they were both highly correlated and had a common factor. So we did the same thing with the academic as with the academic measures and combined Z-scores. So copy figures, children see something like this, and you show them how, there's a line there, and I want you to copy it down here, and they do this for successively harder designs and get a score. And then head, toes, knees, shoulders. When I say touch your head, I want you to touch your toes. And when I say touch your toes, I want you to touch your head. And then you go through the commands. And if they're good, you add knees and shoulders. And it's rather fun. So one was small motor and one was large motor. So here's how we did on that. The children in Montessori and the control children are not significantly different at the first 2 time points, but they became significantly different at time 3. And there's still you know, a decent, it was just barely missed significance and a decent effect size still at the last time point. And there are many other studies showing differences in executive function. And by the way, all of these findings that I've said so far are reiterated in other studies, but they weren't longitudinal. So that's what was really special here, and it had a larger sample. So Carol Dweck has become famous for her work on mindsets, saying that there are basically kind of two ways that people approach their intelligence and their personality. Mastery-oriented people tend to persist at tasks in order to live. They like to learn. They like to take on challenges, whereas performance-oriented people want to opt for easy tasks to look good. And about 40% of Americans pretty naturally fall into one or the other of these orientations, but adult feedback can really influence the mindset that a child takes, and so does situations that they're in and how they're raised. So in order to test children's mastery orientation, which we suspected might be higher in Montessori, we used a puzzle task that Dweck and Smiley made up long ago. In the first phase, the child's given 2 minutes to solve a pretty easy puzzle, a puzzle that's geared at below their age, and then 2 minutes to solve a more difficult puzzle. In fact, it's impossible because unbeknownst to the child, we swapped out a few pieces with a similar looking puzzle. Terrible. And then there's several intervening tasks, and then we say, oh, we have a little bit more time. If you want, you can work on one of these puzzles again. And so then we look at how many children want to choose to work more on that difficult puzzle versus don't want to do anything or take the easy one again. And what you see is the first 2 time points, there's not much difference, but by time 3 and 4, the children at Montessori are significantly more likely to, let me see if I can get that puzzle. Okay, all right, so I've told you a bunch about children in primary then. That's a lot of the highlights. Although there's other interesting things in that study, like Montessori is a great equalizer. Children with low executive function tend to do really badly in conventional schools relative to children with high executive function. In Montessori, it didn't make any difference. Children with low executive function did just as well as children with high executive function, and they all did better than the other children. In conventional schools, girls do worse on spatial tasks than boys. In Montessori, girls do just as well at spatial tasks as boys do. In conventional schools, children who score low on a creativity task I didn't tell you about do worse than children who score high. In Montessori, they all do well. So it's really interesting the way that it seems to bring everybody up, unlike conventional schools.